Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's spicy episode of Attempted Optimism Podcast, where we are just doing our very best. I'm Justin.
And I'm Ben, and I guess it's a spicy episode. I mean, I think it is going to be a spicy episode,
It's going to be a spicy episode.
I just want to say up front, like, this isn't like something we've necessarily researched. This isn't like a document, we're not...
We decided this in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean...
20 minutes ago.
I've been thinking a lot about this subject, don't get me wrong, but this isn't something like we've done a lot of extensive research on. It's just something we want to have a conversation about. So I'm going to say that up front. And what we're talking about this week is we're talking about what I'm kind of calling the loss of the middle ground, or the disappearing middle ground in the world today. And what I mean by that is, like, when I was a kid, I think they kind of referred to it as, like, there are some people who see black and white, right? Like hard truths, hard falses. There's no in between for them. You're right, you're wrong, no middle ground, right? And then there's people who see gray, who inevitably can see both sides, both angles, can reason probably with both portions or factors or factions or whatever you want to call it. But I think 2020, more than any other year that I've ever seen before, I feel like the middle ground is starting to disappear. And I want to know, kind of up front, are you a person who can see the middle ground? Are you like a gray kind of a person, or are you a black and white, has to be one or the other?
I would say, as a simple answer, and I'm sure we'll dive into it, but as a simple answer is, I used to be on a black and white sort of scale.
Mm-hmm.
And then as life has gotten messier for me, so has my opinion and perspective, I think. And I would still say there are some issues that I'm black and white on, or some issues that I haven't been really challenged yet to kind of muddy the waters, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, I would say I attempt to be a gray person.
Yeah, which in our world today is very difficult. I would say, like you, I attempt to be a gray person. I think that's a nice way to put it, because we're not just talking politics here. We're not just talking, world affairs here. We're not talking religion. We're talking about the broad spectrum of things. But what really brought this on for me specifically is the New York Times posted a new article that basically says they found out information about Trump not paying taxes, right? He had paid like $750 over like 3 years or something. Right. That was like the report. I didn't really read the whole thing.
Right.
And what really sparked this like thought of the middle ground for me was the ensuing commentary and conversations surrounding that. And what I found was not surprising, but I guess more disappointing. And I'm guessing you know exactly where I'm going with this, right? There is one side of the fence, we'll say conservative Republicans, or those who follow Trump, those who support Trump and his policies and everything, that were basically like, this is the top comment I saw over and over and over. Must be really nice. I wish I could figure out how to not pay my taxes. Okay? Right. Great. Then on the flip side of it, of course, was this man should go to jail because... he's committing tax fraud. Okay,
he's committing tax fraud, and I think the other thing on this specific side of the fence was that people were upset because they were paying more taxes than a person who is a self-attributed billionaire.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's how you'd put that. And so you have these two totally conflicting sides, and what really irked me about the whole situation, right, is the fact that the middle ground is gone. And what I mean by that is, if we were to go 6 years ago or 8 years ago, right, when Obama's in office, the sides would have probably been flipped. Now, we don't know because it didn't happen, and we're just speculating, right? But like, if Obama's in office and it comes out that $750 is all he'd paid over 5 years of taxes or whatever,
they'd have thrown him out and strung him up.
Well, yeah, or the flip side would be true. The commentary would be, the people who supported Obama would probably have been like, man, that must be really nice. Can he teach me how to do that? And the other side would have been, this man needs to go to jail. And, and so what frustrated me, what irked me about the whole situation was the reality that there is no middle ground anymore. We can't even come to a common ground on what is right and what is wrong anymore, because it's all wrapped up in who we are or who we support, I guess you could say. when it comes to politics specifically.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a lot of that in the United States, really over the last 4 years, and I'd even say over the last 12 years, dating back to Obama's 2 terms. Just the
Yeah.
reality that we can no longer come to an agreement over what's right and wrong without somehow trying to spin it or twist it or tilt it to our own political agenda. And I don't understand it necessarily. Again, being a person who sees a lot of gray, I don't really find myself fitting into any kind of political party, or, I mean, I fit into a religious party, if you want to call it that. Hashtag Jesus rocks. But,
Hashtag what would Jesus do? Hashtag
yeah.
Jesus freak. Call me a Jesus freak.
Hashtag DC Talk comeback reunion.
Down with the DC.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Do you see a lot of that, or do you feel like I'm just kind of speculating, or I'm gone too far? Like,
just talking about politics specifically, or even just the issue you're discussing.
Yeah, we can use the specific issue of the taxes.
Yeah, it's becoming more apparent, I think, to us, because one, we do try to be rational thinking people, and we do, I would say the two of us try to be rational people, except when we're playing Call of Duty.
There's no rationality in that.
Exactly. But I think people have decided with the for whatever, well, I know the reason, and we can get to that later, but I think because of the polarization that's happening, people now are just choosing sides.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that they can't see the truth that might be there for the other side, or that they might be able to identify with it, is that they actually stand at the fence and say, it's not true.
What's amazing to me particularly is that people are now wrapping up their identity into it, which is why I think they can't find a middle ground anymore. It's no longer a separation of, this is what I support or believe in, but I can separate that from who I am. Instead, it's the reality is this is all of who I am. I am a conservative Republican. I will put a flag in my yard. I mean, it has become who people are. And I think that's part of the reason why people can no longer separate it and find that middle ground where we can sit down and have a normal conversation and walk away not being mad at each other. There's only a few people I know that can really, who can have a really intense political conversation and walk away and go, all right, so you want to go grab a bite to eat?
There are a few people who can do that kind of thing, and I'm not even sure I can be that person anymore.
It's tough.
Yeah, because I feel like I try to be one of those gray area people, but I am definitively
who you are. What you
who
believe.
I am,
yeah,
and what I believe, and how I feel about certain situations and issues, and to be frank, I'm probably wrong about some stuff. I'm an imperfect human. I don't know all the details,
but that in itself is a gray area,
right?
Being able to admit you may be wrong on policies or things when it comes to politics, because not even that is realistic anymore. So I kind of want to move on from politics, because this isn't just about politics. This is also about I don't even know what you would call it, world affairs, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
Recently, it's been about a month ago now, I guess. Yeah, because we're in October, right? J.K. Rowling released a new book, and she writes under a pseudonym. I think I talked to you a little bit about this. She writes under a pseudonym. She writes mystery, true crime style novels, and the plot of the most recent book was basically the main detective in the book and the side detective in the book are hunting a killer who would dress up in drag to abduct women. So if you don't like these kind of stories, sorry. But it's not something that hasn't happened, right? It's based on realistic events. There have been serial killers in the world who have dressed up in drag to kidnap women, so to help, keep their facade up or whatever. And what was fascinating is about 3 days before the book release, so probably pre-release is my guess, or the book critics had got a hold of it and were able to read it and write their notes. All of these reports came out basically that J.K. Rowling was transphobic, because of the contents of the book. And this isn't the first time that J.K. Rowling's been accused of that. She's actually been very clear in her statement of saying, like, I believe that there are only two genders, right? She's come out and said that. She even signed a petition and everything.
Right.
But I just thought what was interesting about this, of course, is the reality that everybody who believes in more than two genders instantly canceled J.K. Rowling. Like, hit the big cancel button. Never gonna buy a Harry Potter thing. Never gonna buy these books. Can't support Harry Potter world anymore.
Won't support people who do.
Won't support people who do, support Harry Potter. You're cut off from me if you love Harry. I actually had a person on my Twitter timeline who I don't know, but, followed, who was basically like, if you still support J.K. Rowling, then unfollow me. So I did. Because I bought the book and I like the book and I still love Harry Potter. I mean, we did a whole podcast about it.
Rating art from people.
But again, what I think is interesting is, again, there is no gray area anymore. So, and this is a touchier subject, right? Because now we're getting into the identity or personhood of a person, who they believe they are, who they believe what their gender is, and all that. And we're not going to I'm not like making a stance here or anything. What I'm saying though is that there's no middle ground for that anymore. If you
don't agree with somebody,
correct. If you
should cease to exist.
There are two genders, and a person believes opposite of you, that person no longer wants to have any connection with you, be around you, does not, they don't want you to exist, basically, as you're saying. And I think that's a really fascinating issue, because we now reach into this place where it's, if you don't believe what I don't believe, then I don't want any contact with you. I don't want to be around you. I don't think you're a good person.
We can't agree to disagree.
Like, is it now socially unacceptable for me to say, well, I do believe in two genders, but I still believe and love people who believe differently? I think from my side of the fence, I'll just speak on my side of the fence and I'll let you talk. My side of the fence, I don't see a problem with that, right? Like, I can believe there's male and female, man, woman, whatever, and still love people who don't believe that.
Such in the same way that you believe in God and other people that don't, you can still get along with and love.
Yeah. And hopefully they'll still love me regardless of whether I believe God exists or not, and they don't.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean,
we can coexist. We just choose not to, because we think we're right, and because I can't abide by or vote for somebody who will support somebody else living their lives the way they freaking feel like they should live their lives.
Well,
and it's so hypocritical to me, and it really that's part of that frustration that even you're talking about. Is I understand that people don't live the same way that I live or believe the same things that I do, but that is not going to cause me to hate them. It is not going to cause me to destroy their way of life, and it's not going to cause me to oppose them and go to war with them.
Well, and I think what's interesting is, again, if you look at the other side of it as well, you see this reality of, like, going back to the J.K. Rowling thing, right? Where, because J.K. Rowling grew up as a Catholic, so she grows up with this biblical worldview and idea of what the world is, and so she has this belief that there's two genders, and because she believes that, she's not saying, at no point has J.K. Rowling ever said, I hate people who believe differently than me. I hate people who are trans. I hate, whatever. Like, she's never said that, but because she believes a specific way, it is then perceived that they just place that upon her. Well, she hates us, therefore we should no longer associate or be around her or support people who support her. And I think that's really fascinating, because it then demands this reality of, what I say I am, you must then accept, or you do not love me. And I don't think that should ever be like an ultimatum. I don't think it should be like, just because I say this, that you have to love me for it. I don't know where we came up with this concept, but I remember very specifically talking about, for this issue only, this really strange dynamic that was happening even then, now 11 years ago, of if you don't accept me as I am, then you are at the wrong. But on the flip side, they were also saying to Christians, we don't accept what you believe, you should change it, or you're wrong. But it was what they were demanding.
Or my favorite, where they would call them bigots.
Yeah, what they were demanding.
is bigotry.
Yeah, what they're demanding, what they were demanding then of Christians, and I think we see it on a global scale now, not just Christians versus other people, it's everybody versus everybody, is this
Right.
reality of, I'm not going to accept you and what you believe, but you better accept what I am and what I believe. And it's happening everywhere. Christians are doing it to other groups of people. Other groups of people are doing it to Christians. The right is
Christians are
doing it
doing
to
it
the
to
left. Yeah,
Christians.
Christians are doing it to Christians. The right is doing it to the left. The left is
Yeah.
doing it to the right. Right? Harry Potter fans are doing it to Lord of the Rings fans. Lord of the Rings fans are doing it to Harry Potter fans. I mean, it's just, but it is this confusing mind cycle for me that I sit in all the time as a person who can see the gray, and just going like, how do you guys not see this? What are we missing? Like, how are you not realizing, like, we're all just basically standing on our porches throwing stones at each other, hoping the other person's going to change.
Yeah.
And we can't
Yeah.
come out into the street anymore and just have a normal conversation.
Right.
Because I think, and I would hope, I won't guarantee it, but I would hope that people who have different worldviews of me could attest for me that I've never treated them any differently than any other person that I know. I've had plenty of people that have opposing worldviews and opposing morals and opposing lifestyles, if you want to call it that, not to get any specifics, than me, that I've worked with, that I've had friendships with, that
Right.
I've had meals with, and never once have we had issues. But I think that is few and far between. Because if it
Right.
wasn't few and far between, I don't think we'd have these issues. But it is.
I think it's something that is, it's not what we're seeing right now, but it's certainly something that's happening. I stumbled on, and this is what I was looking over here for a second. I stumbled onto a YouTube channel.
Okay.
I am not even sure how I found it.
I think I know what this is. Go ahead.
Do it.
No,
No,
tell
no.
me. No,
I
tell me.
want to see.
No.
I want to see.
No, tell me.
It is Jubilee.
Yes, I love Jubilee. I watch
Do you
Jubilee's
really?
videos all the time. Yeah,
Oh,
I've been
man.
watching it for like 2 years now.
So this is some of the things that they do, and it's not, this is the beauty of it. You know, you look at having conversations and you look at people trying to understand other people's standpoints, and it's kind of like what you said, where you and your friend talked and you didn't change his worldview, he didn't change your worldview, and it was okay, and we spent time together and it was wonderful.
No.
And there's an idea of, I'm going to have a conversation with somebody on any side of an argument.
Yeah.
And I want to change their minds. I want them to understand my point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we go off and the design, or the idea is to have our stuff heard, our point of view is heard, and it's less about the other person that we're, so it's already kind of off balance. We want to dominate the conversation. We want to change this person's mind. We want to change this person's worldview. And what I've seen Jubilee do is their motto is embrace empathy.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to see people from so many different walks. I mean, we're talking like Muslims and Christians and atheists. They're getting into these groups, and then they bring them back to these chairs, and then they each say how they feel about the middle ground. And it's, if you don't get into the middle ground, you're standing at the back, and you'll get your turn to come back. But first, we're going to have this conversation with people that want to have the conversation, and everybody gets to speak. And it's not so much. I don't know if they try to tell people this beforehand, but when they get their chance to speak, it's not to stand and make an account and to plead your case. It's to explain your perspective and your point of view.
It's about your feeling. It's not about changing somebody else's feeling. It's about expressing your feelings or what you believe,
and then knowing that someone else hears you.
Yep.
And then trying to understand their perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about your perspective. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about trying to understand and empathize with other people. And it's such a beautiful show.
And I think that's lost in the rhetoric and the nonsense because people don't want it to be. They don't want to hear the truth anymore. You don't really want to. You want to hear what supports your truth. And